This is my guide to the MK300 M-VAVE effects unit. I had a look online and I couldn't really find any English language proper instructions for it, so I thought I'd do my own. So here we go. The first thing is to find a blank place to create our first profile, and the blank ones start off at 81. So if you turn the parameter knob and press it, that then selects the preset that you've selected. In this case, user preset 81. There are 80 already programmed in here. If we go back, there's one I've already done earlier. There we are. So I've done a Fender Super profile there. What I've done with mine is to create one profile and then copy it and just change the amps and settings, because it makes life a lot easier once you've created it that way. But we're going to start from scratch today, so I'll go back to number 81 and just show you how we do it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to select an amp. By doing that, we press the amp button and then that takes you to this screen which shows you all of the amp settings. To go through the settings, you again press the parameters knob, and you can see there are some dots here which show you the different screens. So you've got 3 screens of settings for this. So you've got gain, level, bass, middle treble, resonance, presence and brightness for the amp. Okay, so let's go back to the first one. And to actually activate the amp, you press the button again, and you can see that then activates the little icon. And then you've got the list of the different amps. So I'm going to select one from here. I've loaded in a couple which you can download. I'll do a separate video on that. You can download them from the community. So let's find some of the ones I've already downloaded. I've downloaded mine because I don't use bass for it. I've overwritten the bass amps on here with some of my own, if I can find them. They're in the 80s somewhere. No, I can't find it. It's in here somewhere. Keep going. I've got, there we are. Let's do this one. So this is a profile of a Victory V30. So that's going to be my amp. Then once you've got the amp selected, obviously you would plug in and see that you pick one that you like the sound of. The next thing you're going to need is the cab. So same again, you press the cab button. Once brings you up the settings. This one's, you've only got 3 settings on the cabinet. So you've got the level as a low cut and a high cut. So then press it again, and that activates it. And again, you can choose from the list. So again, I've overwritten some of the bass amps, bass IRs with some of my own that I've downloaded. The one I like is an Eminence Governor profile. So that's that. So that's your basic minimum, an amp and a cabinet. One of the nice things about the M-VAVE is that you've also got a distortion one, which you can actually download your own profiles for. So if you can find a profile of a Klon or whatever, or anything you like really, Tube Screamer, you can load those into that. They've got quite a lot in here already, as you can see. So if I scroll through them, they're prefixed with OD for the overdrives, and you go down lower, and then you get to a prefix of FZ for the fuzzes. So these are distortions, DS. There is a list available. I'll put it in the comments because there's not one in the actual manual that tells you what all of these correspond to. Most of the overdrive ones, OD1, OD3, OD, I don't know what that means, SD1. So these are profiles of Boss overdrives. So it's, once you get used to the naming, you can see that one's Klon C, so it's obviously a Klon Centaur. Let's stick one of those in. That's that one. So then, once you've done all those, At this point I would probably save it. So the button over here is used to save them, and it'll ask you where you want to save it. So you can save it to where we are, 81, and you can give it a name, which is done. I won't go through it now, but you can see you can select different letters and then change them. So let's just change a couple of them so you can see how that works. So we call it, we'll just change them all to B's just for now so you can see how it works. That'll do for now, and we'll clear the rest. So it uses the buttons here. So it tells you, there's a little guide at the bottom here that tells you how to write them. So you can do all of this actually on the pedal, which I quite like. The one thing I particularly liked about this was that I haven't used the manual to do any of this. I just played around with it for about an hour. There we are. So we've now got a preset. And if you click so save that. And now if you click the home button, you can see, you can name the presets, and that's the name that you're giving it. And you always get, on the home screen, you get preset volume, BPM setting, and pan. Not terribly useful for me, to be honest, because I'm using, it's just going into a mono speaker. So you press home again, and then that brings you up to the visual demonstration of what you've got on there. So you can see each of these can be switched on and off just by pushing the button a couple of times, and then you can choose what you want to use. The other important bit here is your settings. So these knobs here, knob 1, 2 and 3, can all be customized. In fact, all of those and all of these can be customized, and you do that by pressing the control. So the first one shows you what's already there. So that one is, so knob 1 is amp level, which is quite handy. This one's set up as gain. The only one that I've changed on my profiles is the third one. They've always got set as middle, which I guess if you want to change the mid-range on your models regularly, you can. But I've changed that on mine to be the level of the vibrato, because I like to have vibrato on each of mine, tremolo on each of mine. So that one then controls the tremolo, so I'll show you how to do that. So on here, I come down, I've selected knob 3, and then I choose what I want that to control. So in this case, modulation, because I wanted to control my tremolo level. And on here, I've selected tremolo. Then you press the parameter button to set it up, and then you can then change what it affects. So I want it to control the depth of the tremolo so that I can bring the tremolo in and out. So that's set that up. Now we need to make sure that I've got the same effect selected in the modulation. So if I click on the modulation button now, put it on, it's set to tremolo. And now if I turn this one, you can see it's affecting the depth of the tremolo. Okay, so let's come back out of that. Let's save it. So if the save button's flashing, it means you've changed something, so you can save it. Each time you go to save it, it gives you the option. I'll do it again. So you can rename it at this point. You can also select on this the color of the backlights on the buttons, which is a very nice feature. So you can have different colors for each one. And as I say, it shows you here, you've got like a key telling you what each of the buttons does, and it uses the foot switches for some things. So you can backspace, go next, and so on. And then once you've got it set up how you want it, you press save. So now that one is now saved with the modulation active. I don't normally want it to be active. The buttons, these 4 buttons can also be programmed to do different things. So you've got a primary thing, which is the push, just basically a quick push on the button. And then you've got a secondary one, which is press and hold. So in my case, I wanted press and hold to switch the modulation on and off. So we select whichever button we want to do. I've put it on the 4th button, which is Control B. So you select, so click is just the normal one, and if you turn that, it then goes to hold, and then you can decide what you want that to do. So in my case it's module control, so I'll go back to modulation and you select that one. That's it, so press the parameter button to select it, and that should then switch that on and off. Let's try that. So let's save that. Now if we go back to the home screen, if I press and hold this, I'm hoping that will now switch on and off. There we are. Let's switch the modulation off and switch it back on. So that's now going to switch my tremolo effect, which is the one I've got for modulation, on and off. So that's a basic setup with just using, so on here we've switched distortion on for some reason. Let's turn that back off, turn it off and save it. If you save it in a state, it will remember that state. So when I go back to this preset, I don't want the distortion on all the time. I've saved it in modulation on, obviously, so let's turn that back off, save it again. So I want that when I go back to that preset. So if we go down one and back to it, so modulation is off by default. We've got amp and cabinet on by default. We haven't added reverb at this stage. So that's my basic setting. So each one of the effects you can save its initial state, and you can then program these to switch them on and off if you want. So we've got on here, we've got the wah pedal, which you've got various different types over here. You can set that, I'll show you in a separate video how to set the pedal up, because otherwise these videos are going to get very long. So that's the basic setting. Once you've got that basic one set up with all of these parameters set and the buttons doing what you want to, I will save that somewhere out of the way, and then you can use that as your default one. So if I now want to create another version of this, maybe change the amp, we just do save, and in this case we click it on one, it's now going to save to 82, which is the next one. Press save again. So now if we go to the home screen, we've got the same on 82, and then we can just go back in, change the amp if we want to, so have a completely different amp for that one, select that, and then that's the basis for our next preset. Because I think in my case I'm always at the moment going to want these three knobs to do the same thing. I think it means it's a lot more predictable, you know, if they're all set up the same, or maybe you could have banks that do different things, but for mine I'm going to have them certainly for now with that knob 1 always controlling level, knob 2 always controlling gain, knob 3 always controlling modulation depth, so that I can bring it in and out. I can switch it off completely if I want to. I mean, maybe it would make more sense not to bother switching modulation on and off with the button, because you can just bring it in with that, and if you turn it down to 0, it's off. The interesting thing is quite a lot of these separate effects have their own level as well, so you can use them to boost it a bit if you want to. So for instance, modulation, you see you've got a level on here, so even if that's set to 0, I think you can boost the level to make it a bit louder. I'll have to test that and make sure. So that's it for my basic setup, and I'll come back with some sound examples.